Now, I said I had 172 questions, and I didn't say that every 3 minutes that you speak, 10 more questions occur to me. So that now it's drastically over 200. And I have to choose what to pursue. So, firstly, this is going to be part one of another conversation because there's no way that we can cram all of this into 2 hours or so. Let's talk about the impedance matching then.
Yeah. I don't think this is super rigorous at this point. I think when I've talked about impedance matching, it's think of like when you have several kind of like vibrations going on inside you, something that you can like tune into in meditation. If you try to kind of like slow down in meditation, really calm down, and then you do, let's say, like a body scan of like what is happening in your body, you will notice that there's a series of metronomes. There's kind of like some wave emitters, as it were. To start with, there is your breathing, right? Like you have a periodic kind of like oscillation just coming from breathing that is exciting your whole body at that frequency. But then there's also your heartbeat, right? Like, and your breathing and your heartbeat can be aligned or misaligned. Playing with the alignment of your heartbeat and your breathing actually is a really powerful technique for making progress in meditation. For example, aiming to do one breath cycle every 6 heartbeats and kind of like really honing in on that resonance, so like you have a kind of this integer ratio between those two vibrations or oscillations. So that would be a kind of impedance matching in that you have like these 2 different frequencies and you're taking steps to essentially make them aligned, make them integer ratios of each other. But that would be just the very kind of like the base frequencies of your experience, because there's a lot more that is happening. On increasing levels of subtlety, you can notice kind of oscillations or vibrations in your stomach, in your arms, in your legs, in your face. And one thing that I have found, something for which I don't have a rigorous empirical paradigm, but I'm pretty confident there is something here, is that whenever you pay attention to 2 things at once within your field of experience, they slowly but surely begin to synchronize. So this is an exercise that people at home can do. You can just book 5 minutes by the clock, and let's say once you calm down a little bit in meditation, pay attention to the vibrations in both of your hands. Most of the time, I guess people don't notice that there's vibrations in their body, but if you relax enough and you're concentrated enough, you will notice that everything is vibrating in different ways, usually pretty subtle, sometimes much more overt. But my claim is, based on a lot of personal experience and trying it with other people, if you kind of like tune into the vibrations that are happening in both of your hands, and you try to kind of like place your attention in an even way, right? Like not kind of like, oh, this hand and then this hand or alternating. No. Like try to pay attention to both of them exactly at once in a continuous kind of homogeneous way, almost kind of like spreading some kind of attention liquid, as it were, in both of your hands. You will notice that over the course of minutes, the vibrations slowly but surely synchronize. And after a while, you may even actually get kind of this like strobing sensation where both of your hands are kind of like aligned with your heartbeat, for example. Now, this is just 2 parts of your body, but let's say that you do these over and over again. What you do, kind of the algorithm of this meditation would be you find the 2 parts in your body that are vibrating in the most desynchronized way possible. Then you spend like 5 minutes paying attention to both of them until they harmonize. So that would be kind of an instance of impedance matching in a way. Like you're connecting them in such a way that they can slowly but surely synchronize, like metronomes in a table.
Okay, let's be clear here. So when someone is focusing on, say, their left leg and their right ear, and those are the most dissonant. Now, maybe you say what was likely be the most dissonant will be the heart and the brain, or like some place of significance. Whatever, doesn't matter. Place A and place B. They're not trying to will the synchronization. They're just paying attention to the dissonance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say there's a slight, a very slight kind of like twist here, because if the thing that you're paying attention to is the dissonance itself, like if the thing that you're paying attention to is the way in which they're out of phase, actually that may exacerbate and enhance the dissonance. Just because that's kind of like how attention works. Like whatever you pay attention to becomes stronger. That is kind of like a very big perspective. So instead, what you really have to do is pay attention to the way in which they are kind of similar. And then slowly the ways in which the vibrations are similar will be the part that becomes amplified until eventually you have kind of this like synchronized strobing of the different parts of the body.
Okay, so you have Justin Bieber playing in one ear, and then you have Nirvana playing in another ear, and they're different. And you can tell they're different, and you could focus on their difference, or you can say, okay, I noticed that they're different, first of all. Now that I've noticed that they're different, how are they similar? And then they both have lyrics. They both similar vocal range. They're not, but you understand. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. Like, yeah, absolutely. Something like there's an undercurrent of similarity or kind of like shared nature. And you try to focus on that. And yeah, because essentially whatever you focus on, whatever you pay attention to becomes stronger, then the shared aspect of experience will be strengthened over time. And then if you kind of do this recursively, I mean, it's like, okay, like both of my hands now are vibrating in a synchronized way, but maybe not my feet. Then, okay, I'm going to pay attention to both of my hands and my feet at the same time until it synchronizes. And you repeat, again and again and again. Eventually, actually, your whole body and all of your sensory fields will enter into coherence. And the moment you do that successfully, actually, you enter the first jhana, which is this very powerful whole body vibration, which is coherent across the board and is usually described as extremely pleasant. It's also, by the way, one of the kind of like intuitive reasons why we associate at Qualia Research Institute the kind of like harmony and symmetry of the experience with the feelings of well-being and the valence of the state. That when you're like in this very, very concentrated state of consciousness, you notice how like even subtle kind of like misalignments and subtle imperfections in the synchronization process drive kind of like a sense of unease or a slight body discomfort. And every time you actually bring together and you harmonize the vibrations, you get this feeling of happiness and well-being. And so you can actually just take it all the way, and more levels of synchronization will eventually happen until, something really exotic, like you become this powerful sense of joy and then peace and then equanimity. And then even you absorb into space, for example. Like the fifth jhana is absorption into boundless space. And as far as I can tell, the reason why that happens is because everything is in a state of coherence. And the sense of a boundary and separation within our field of consciousness is literally implemented with out of phase interactions or vibrations that are not in synchrony. So whenever you synchronize everything, the boundaries dissolve. There's nothing your brain can use to kind of like generate the sense of separation. And usually, that's a very pleasant, positive experience. And once you get used to kind of like those very high valence, very pleasant, joyful states of consciousness, you realize that essentially our motivational architecture all of our life was driven by the pursuit of those kind of like that gradient, except that we were pursuing it in a very inefficient, kind of roundabout, circumvent kind of way.
The Economist covers math, physics, philosophy, and AI in a manner that shows how different countries perceive developments and how they impact markets. They recently published a piece on China's new neutrino detector. They cover extending life via mitochondrial transplants, creating an entirely new field of medicine. But it's also not just science. They analyze culture, they analyze finance, economics, business, international affairs across every region. I'm particularly liking their new Insider feature. It was just launched this month. It gives me, a front row access to The Economist's internal editorial debates, where senior editors argue through the news with world leaders and policymakers in twice weekly long format shows. Basically, an extremely high-quality podcast. Whether it's scientific innovation or shifting global politics, The Economist provides comprehensive coverage beyond headlines. As a TOE listener, you get a special discount. Head over to economist.com/TOE to subscribe. That's economist.com/TOE for your discount.